Hello, Internet. Give me 1 second. Just getting set up here. Forgot to turn on streaming mode. Need to make sure the camera does not go off midstream. All right. We should be good now. Hello, everyone. Fellow synth enthusiasts. Welcome to the first Patch and Play stream of April. My name is Jimmy, aka Perceptes. And if you're new to this series, what we do is we do a modular patch together, which is generally either unplanned or certainly unrehearsed. We just kind of start, we have this sort of blank slate in front of us with no particular idea of where to go. And we just see where things take us and try to make something that's enjoyable and something that's educational. I would love for these streams to be really guided by what the viewers are interested in. I'm as much interested in education about music and music production as I am about enjoying the music itself and the process. So for those in the chat watching this live, please do interrupt me to ask questions, leave comments if there's specific modules you want to learn about, specific techniques, or just any questions about modular or music in general. I would love to hear what you have to say. So let's see if anyone's here yet, because I have only just started. Andra, welcome to the stream. You are a familiar face. I've seen you around the YouTube before. Czech Republic. I have never been to Czech Republic. But from what I've seen, it looks beautiful. I've also been experimenting with different times of doing this stream. This is the first time I've done a Monday stream, which is maybe a little weird because I'm in the West Coast of the United States where pretty much everyone is going to be working at this time slot. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be mostly people in Europe who are having their evening right now that will be able to come live. But I've just kind of been experimenting with different days to see what works best for people and make sure that everyone gets a chance to come. If I'm always doing it at the same time, then people who are working or busy or whatever during that time really have no opportunity to ever attend live. So trying to find a right balance between consistency so that people kind of know what to expect and variety to kind of allow for that overlap. Let's see. Oh, some other new folks here. Ted Rosner, I believe I remember you from previously. Something with distortion. Working on a patch where I take the wet distortion and apply some effects in parallel to the dry. Oh yeah, that would be cool. And that's perfect. I still have Ruina Versio in the rack, so that is an excellent distortion. Hey, Mako Makes Music. Welcome to the stream. I'm not sure I've seen you before. If I have, I apologize for not remembering. And if this is your first time, welcome. Yeah, Germany, UK. Yeah, this is kind of what I would expect that on a Monday. It's Monday afternoon on the West Coast of North America. It's going to be pretty much Europe and maybe some of Asia. I don't know. I don't really see a lot of kind of like Asian countries seemingly represented a lot in sort of the online synth community. I guess not everyone announces where they're from, so maybe I just wouldn't know. But it seems like it's kind of dominated by the US and Europe, especially England. I see like a lot of representation there. Love to see the E16 included. Yeah, sure. We if we don't do a lot of E16, I mean, obviously I brought it out because I thought we might want to use it, and it's my newest piece of gear, so I'm interested. We did mess with the E16 last week on the stream, so if you want to get more of your fill of that, you can also watch the recording of last week's stream at your leisure. But yeah, it's great. Also, I've got a new music performance video coming out on Wednesday this week, which uses the E16. It'll be my first performance video involving the E16, and so you get to see kind of the way that I ended up using it for the first time, and kind of to some degree my thoughts about it, although it doesn't go into a lot of detail because the E16 isn't really the point of the patch. In the one that's coming out on Wednesday also, I'm using the Digitact kind of actually as sort of the primary instrument, and there's a couple of modular voices, but the E16 is actually only controlling the Digitact through MIDI CCs. So if you're looking for like an E16 modular kind of experience, then you'll have more luck with the stream from last week where we actually patched it into the modular. But yeah, I plan to do more of this in the future. I might do like a sort of a full deep dive on the Oxy E16, but I feel like it's also pretty early days, and there's a lot of I wouldn't say problems with it, but there's some rough edges and things that where I think maybe a few firmware updates from now there would be a pretty significant improvement in sort of the workflow. So I might just wait for a while before I do a video that's kind of focused on the E16. So that's what I'm thinking. But maybe we should... so yeah, if you're just joining us, I'll do my spiel once more. This is Patch and Play. I do these streams have been doing them once a week for a couple of months now. And it's just a patch from scratch, unplanned. So we just sit down, start patching, and come up with what we're going to do along the way. And I really want these to be guided by participation with anyone who's watching them live. So please, if you have questions or requests, things you want to know, things you want to hear, I would much rather kind of follow what people are interested in than have me just kind of make up stuff and have you watch me passively. Obviously, people will watch this on recording and then they won't be able to participate in that way. But for those that are here live, I'm very appreciative of questions and comments. Winter Bloom stuffs plus distortion. Yeah, that's a good idea. I always have to kind of hedge my bets a little bit. I'm not sure if that's the right metaphor, but I never know if people are going to have specific requests. So as much as this is supposed to be sort of unplanned, I do kind of think a little bit about, okay, if no one requests anything, what am I going to do for 2 hours, and kind of have some idea to make it a little different than what we've done before. So one thing I did in preparation for today is I flashed a bunch of different firmwares onto, I guess 3 of them, to my noise engineering modules. Let me switch over to the right case. So down here I have 2 Alia modules, 1 Legio and 2 Versios. These are the platform, quote unquote, platform modules from noise engineering, because you buy one hardware and then any of the other firmwares that work on the same hardware, you can flash onto it for free. So there's, I don't know, probably about 15 or 20 different firmwares across these 3 different module platforms. So for the price of one piece of hardware, you get a lot of sort of choice in terms of how you use this. It's super easy to flash. It just takes a few minutes. And since I have 2 Alias and 2 Versios, I have a lot of sort of mixing and matching that I can do. And I have all of these little overlay plates that they sell, which, because if you flash a different firmware onto it, suddenly the labels on the panel don't match what it actually is. But you can get these little overlays that have the labels for the different firmwares, and then you just lay it on top of the panel like that, and you get the labels for whatever you flashed onto there, which is very convenient. So what I flashed this week is I was trying to pick firmwares that I don't use very often, kind of sort of my underused firmwares. I was kind of inspired by there was a thread on ModWiggler, the modular forum site, where someone put a poll about like what are your favorite what are your favorite Alia firmwares, and I was really surprised to see Incus was, I think, the second to top highest, because I have not had much luck with Incus. I've used it a few times, but every time I use it, I'm like, this is less intuitive than Basimilus, which is a very similar and popular Alia firmware, and I'm always just like, I kind of wish this was Basimilus, and I switch back to it. But a lot of people really like it, so I'm thinking it's probably a me problem and not a module problem, and I just need to spend more time with it. So anyway, I've got that. I've got Debel Iteritas, which is kind of like a FM sort of voice, very, very complex. I think it has like a whole bunch of different, and I only reread the manual recently, but it's usually FM has like a few operators that are essentially waveforms that modulate each other. And in Debel, each operator is actually like a set of multiple oscillators. So it's a little hard for me to wrap my head around what that would entail. But I think it's kind of just sort of like a kind of a macro FM thing where you don't have a huge amount of control over the specifics of the FM algorithm, but you just kind of have these macros that change certain aspects of it that kind of give you mostly sweet spots. So this could be an interesting one to try out. I still have Ruina. This is the base module that I bought. That's a distortion. Sinc Legio on the Legio platform, this little thin one. This is a stereo oscillator that has sort of a few different FM-like modes. I guess it's actually PM, phase modulation, although in practice I think PM and FM sound pretty similar, especially to the untrained ear. So I haven't spent a lot of time with the Legio oscillators. I mostly use it as Timp Legio, which is the bass module I got. This is a percussion module, but I thought maybe we'd try Sinc Legio. And then I flashed Yester Versio over my second Versio, which is like a fairly simple, it's like their quote unquote simple delay. And I'm curious to try multiple delays because the only other delay I have in my case is C-legs, which I use on pretty much every patch. But I think I'm often wishing that I had a second delay so that way I can have sort of like a slower sort of dotted eighth note delay on a send, and then maybe use like a shorter or more experimental delay as an insert on a different instrument. So yeah, that's just me kind of babbling about where I was planning, but we do have some ideas that we want to do something with distortion. We want to get the Winterbloom modules involved. The Winterbloom ones are up here. So that's Castor and Pollux. This is a dual oscillator that's modeled after like the Roland Juno architecture. So it's a digitally controlled oscillator where it has like kind of a left side and a right side. The left side kind of fixes determines the pitch, and then the right side generally is kind of like an offset pitch from that to create sort of warm chorusing effects that has kind of a retro 80s synth sound. And then my other Winterbloom module is Neptune, which is this filter right here. And the interesting thing about Neptune is that it's a spectral morpher. So, you know, a lot of filters, you have an input, and then you have like a low pass output and a high pass output, or maybe like a toggle switch to determine sort of what type of filter it's going to be. And Neptune kind of works in the reverse, where you actually have separate inputs for low pass and high pass, and they work at the same time out of a single mono output. And when you change the cutoff, it's actually doing both of them at the same time, and you're doing a spectral blend. So like when the cutoff is all the way up, you're fully open on the low pass and fully closed on the high pass. And then as you turn the knob down, the low pass output starts to close and the high pass output starts to open. So you're essentially getting sort of, it's like a volume crossfade, but it's also a frequency spectrum crossfade. So it's kind of an interesting design, and it's got a great sounding resonance and this cool feature called Salt, which is sort of like an auto sort of LFO, I guess, for, if I'm not mistaken, it's the cutoff. So it'll kind of apply feedback to the cutoff and give you kind of a gnarly sound. So this actually would be, I think, a good combo to use with Ruina for some distortion. So that's just kind of me blabbing about kind of what I was imagining for today, and a bit of context for what I think we're going to use. Let me check in with the chat and have some tea. I really need a mute button for this system so you guys don't hear me slurping tea. Yeah, you know, I feel like the Oct expander gets requested basically every stream. And, you know, that's fine. I think that's probably a testament to the fact that a lot of people have Oct and are considering whether or not to get the expander. For those not in the know, this is Oct and this is the expander. They're both 4 HP right next to each other. Oct is sort of preset triangle wave LFOs, and then the expander uses those core triangles to generate new sort of modulation signals that are pretty interesting. So yeah, I mean, those are easy to sort of just like, no pun intended, but sort of patch and play. Like you don't have to do a lot of configuration because it's literally just a preset sort of behavior, and the only thing is this rate control and this CV if you want. Tommy, I don't know if I welcomed you to the stream. If not, welcome. I could never be trusted with a modular setup because I would spend hours fine-tuning a beautiful sound and then crank through it, a shitty distortion pedal, and play Doom songs on it. I feel like, based on that description, you should be trusted with modular, because that sounds pretty cool. I mean, obviously there's a lot of beautiful music you can make with modular, but I think what separates it from like a usual DAW workflow is sort of the experimental nature, the exploration, and sort of the fun of the sort of I always forget whether right brain or left brain is the logical analytical side or whatever, but I feel like music in general is kind of like is about art and expression, and bringing this sort of electronics and the kind of geekiness to it is kind of the logical side of the brain. And for me, that's why one of the reasons why it's so appealing is that, I'm a software developer by day, and this really appeals to sort of the part of my brain that likes logic puzzles and piecing things together and understanding details. And so the ability to combine sort of my love of programming and puzzles with my love of music and art is like perfectly captured by modulars, why it just works for me so well. So it's all about exploration and fun. And I think making a crazy sound and running it through pedals is exactly what you should be doing. Oh yeah, VCV rack is, it's funny, like often the advice for people starting with modular, let me go back to the zoomed out version so we're not just staring at one case. A lot of times the advice for people who are interested in starting in modular is like, don't buy anything, because modules are expensive, and when you don't know what you're doing, you're very likely to buy things that aren't quite right for what you want to do. And you can use VCV rack, the emulation software, which gives you an entirely sort of virtual environment for this, most of which is free. Like the program itself is free, and there's a lot of free modules. So it's a really the way you should start, about learning the basics, getting a sense of what you might be interested in. And I did that, but I very quickly discovered that A, I was really into the idea, and B, the difference between controlling things with a mouse and controlling things in the physical world with my hands is like night and day in terms of my enjoyment of the process. And so I very quickly went into that. Yeah, let's make some music. Let's stop talking. Run a music business. Oh yeah, totally. Okay, let's get going, because I've been chatting for 20 minutes. I need to shut up and make some sounds. Okay, so let's get a voice going with Castor and Pollux. And I guess I need to patch up my outputs, of course. So let's take the output of the mixer, as we always do, into my output module. As we start to make some sounds here, please let me know if the audio levels are okay and if you're able to hear me over the modular and vice versa. Neither one is too loud or too quiet. Okay, let's send, I'm going to just use Castor and Pollux as a mono voice. You can use the left and right oscillators separate, as two separate mono outputs that you can kind of mix at your preference, but you can also take this middle jack, which is a mix of the two together into one output. And I'm just going to use Smordax data to tune this. And let's bring this in so we can hear it. All right, you should be hearing something now. So that's at C2. I might bring it up to C1. Let's bring it up to C2 so it's not quite so low and grumbly. And I actually need to... So one thing I really don't like about Castor and Pollux is it has this jack detection system where it has two different modes on the sort of pitch control based on whether or not there's something patched in to the pitch input. But the way it does jack detection is not like the mutable instrument stuff where it just can tell that something's in there. It considers anything above 0 volts as patched and anything below 0 volts as unpatched. And the problem with that is that if you want to send 0 volts, it thinks that there's nothing patched and it switches modes. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tune one of these to a single voltage. This is a little bit fiddly. And I apologize for this, but I don't want it to switch modes on me. So what I'm going to do is try to get, I'm looking at my voltage monitor, and I'm going to get a static voltage out of the first channel of Quadrat. I want to get it basically to as close to exactly 1 volt as I can, just so there's sort of like a baseline of signal. I think that's probably close enough. As long as it doesn't change. Very hard to get an exact voltage on this. I should probably use something more precise. Okay, that's probably close enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that static voltage and mix it in with our pitch CV once we get one. So let me just put this in here for now. And let's do this again. Let's see if that's staying one pitch. Oh, that might not work. Doesn't even hear a note there. Alright, there you see G1. So let's bring that up to C2. Okay, not too bad. So that's going to be the new baseline. And let's turn that off so we don't get annoyed. Let me check in with the chat because I see some stuff going on. Tommy. Mako. Just forget what the in and outs are on it. Yeah, you know, the downside to well, I guess this is true of all instruments, is that like the UI makes a big difference. Like how intuitive the labeling is, how intuitive the controls are. Ideally, it should be something where you don't have to refer to a manual to like kind of remember what things do if you haven't used it in a while. And as pretty as this is, I agree with you that it's sometimes, if you haven't used it in a while, it can be hard to remember what the symbols mean. Absolutely. Love your advice on using the Oxy 1 MK2 for controlling sequences. Tyler, welcome to the stream. I think I've seen you before, Tyler. Welcome back, if so. Yeah, that's kind of a broad question, so maybe we'll get to using it a bit in a while, and see where we go. You can ask something more specific. Yeah. Curious why your lapsus is the only thing on their top row with the jacks on the top when you can reverse it. The reason is because it's easier to reach the sliders without getting my hands stuck in cables. So I guess I could reach over the top. I just felt like this was easier. I could try switching it, but I haven't really had trouble with it. So maybe it looks a little odd. I don't know. But once there's a lot of cables patched up, usually I find this easier to reach. And if I had a little bit more space in the bottom, I would actually probably move this to the bottom row so that the sliders would be kind of right at the edge where there generally aren't cables crossing their paths. But that's the reason that I have it oriented that way. Okay, so we've got this sound. How's the volume levels, by the way? Is the oscillator too quiet compared to my voice? And let's bring in... Okay, I'm just tuning the Pollux side to be as close to Castor as I can by ear. As you start to detune the right side, the Pollux side, it will start to create these kind of phasing sounds because of the two oscillators beating against each other. Volume's okay? Cool. So Castor and Pollux allows you to sort of mix different waveforms. So these little, I'm not sure, let me go to my right so you can see the details maybe. So these little pots control the volume of each waveform for each side. So the three on the left control a saw wave, a variable width pulse wave, and a square sub oscillator. And then the right side has the same. And you can introduce as much as you want from either side. And then this knob in the middle kind of crossfades between the left and the right oscillator. So you can see if I turn it all the way to the right, we'll hear nothing because I haven't brought up the volume on any of the little pots here. But as I start to bring them in, and then these knobs control the pulse width for the square wave. So I think maybe having a saw on the left and a pulse on the right. And, you know, just for some interest, let's start with using the oct expander to get some modulation going on the pulse width, maybe. Let's see if this is a long enough cable. So I plugged, I'm going to use a slightly longer one. I don't want to bend my cables, snap them inside. So I'm using the bottom section of the oct expander, which is described as slow noise. So it's essentially just stepped random modulation. And each of the 4 jacks in the bottom section is a different speed of noise. So this will give us a just kind of random modulation on the pulse width of the Pollux oscillator, the square wave. Or I guess pulse wave is more accurate since it's not always square. What do you use to tune to pitch? New to your channel. Yeah, I use Mordak's data for tuning. If I go over to the left case, I don't know how well you can see it on the stream, but I have it in tuner mode right now. And you just patch a signal into any one of the inputs and select that input, and it's going to give you, it's got this kind of dotted line on the horizontal axis, and the center is kind of exactly on the 12-tone scale, and it'll give you the frequency of the incoming signal as well as the closest sort of 12-tone note, and then you can see how much it's sharp or flat, and you just kind of change your tuning until you land right on the center, as close as you can. It's not super easy for Castor and Pollux because it's an analog oscillator, and so the pitch will fluctuate more than it will with a digital one, but it's pretty close, and that's part of its character, is to kind of have that retro kind of not quite accurate sound. And then especially with the mixture of the pulse wave with variable width, the tuner can get kind of confused as to what it's hearing if the pitch isn't totally precise. But yeah, Data is a great tuner. There's plenty of other ones. I also have the Zero Scope, which is a 1U oscilloscope that has a tuner built into it. And there's some other utilities you can use to help with tuning, like I think the Bard Quartet Quantizer has a setting where it will send out exactly 0 volts, which you can use as sort of as a basis for making sure that your oscillators are being tuned against the baseline voltage that they might receive on 1 volt per octave. Yeah, I don't have a good sort of like high resolution image for you of the individual cases. So some of the detail when I zoom in, I have to kind of describe, and you can kind of fill in the gaps between what you can see and how I'm describing it. But yeah, always feel free to ask questions so I can clarify, because I know you can't necessarily read the text on this stuff at this resolution. Okay, should we get a pitch sequence going into this so it's not annoying? What do we want to do for pitch? Maybe we should use the Oxy 1 since someone requested to use it for sequencing. So let me go ahead and boot that up, and while we're at it, I'm going to move. I've been charging the battery on this. Let me turn this off for a second. I've been charging the battery on the Oxy 1, but the E16 does not have an internal battery, so this one has to be plugged in order to work. But the Oxy 1 is in fact powered by its own internal battery. I do have a zoom in on the center. I don't know, tell me if you can read any of the text on the Oxy 1 screen at this resolution. I think it's probably similar to the modules. I mean, it's a lot more zoomed in than like a single case view, so maybe you'll be able to see this. But the first thing we want to do to use the Oxy 1 with modular is to set up the CV outputs. Let me go back to the zoomed out version for a second so I can explain. So the Oxy 1 has CV and gate outputs on the back of the hardware, but it also has this system called the pipe, where this left module in my dark case is a mirror of the jacks on the back of the Oxy 1 hardware, and there's a mini HDMI port on the back, and so you can see there's a single HDMI cable that's connecting the Oxy 1 and the pipe module, and this is a way to bring all of the CV gate jacks into your case without having to plug each patch cable directly into the back of the sequencer. So it's just a convenience for doing that. So I've got that plugged in. I'm going to set up the CVs, and then the CV and gate signals are going to come out of this module up here. So let's go back to the zoom. Cool. So what we need to do is we need to tell Oxy 1 what CV and gate jacks to map to which sequencers. So if you hold shift and then press the gen button for CV gate, then you can select. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set sequencer 1 CV1. The left 8 columns are the CV jacks, and the right 8 columns are the gate jacks. So let's set, when I press the top buttons in each of those columns, this is saying the CV1 jack is going to be the pitch of the first sequencer. And similarly, the first gate jack is going to be the gate of the first sequencer. So I think that's all we need to get started. If I then switch into the first sequencer, I can change the scale. Let's do the minor scale, which is generally the most pleasant, at least to me. And then we should be able to patch something. So let me take the CV out of number 1, and we're going to send that actually into the quadrat. And remember, the reason I'm doing this is I'm adding a static voltage to the total signal going into this so that it always stays above 0 volts. And that way it doesn't revert to its different pitch behavior where it thinks nothing's plugged in, which will cause it to go out of tune. So if that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it too much, but I'm happy to clarify if you'd like to know the details there. Okay, so we're going to switch this guy. Let me use a shorter cable so I can save my long ones. And so we're going to patch out of this guy and into this guy and bring this attenuator all the way up. So now we've got the static voltage, which is tuned to C2. That is the note C in the second octave. And then we're going to take a gate signal. Zoom to the right. We're going to take the first gate signal from the Oxy pipe. And this actually needs to... So Castor and Pollux does not have a built-in VCA. So we're actually going to need to use our own VCA for this. And we need an envelope generator. So let me actually go back. We'll use the quadrax as our envelope generator. So I'm actually going to patch gate 1 into trig 1 of the quadrax. And then we'll send the signal of that. This is a little awkward because they're on opposite cases. Normally this would be a little easier because I usually orient the cases vertically. But let's send, let me get a short cable. We're going to send the envelope created by quadrax into the CV input of the quad VCA. And then we're going to patch, I guess we don't need to worry about this anymore. So I'm going to patch the input of Castor and Pollux into the first channel of the quad VCA, and then its output into the mixer. And now we should have triggers and pitch. So let me go back to, actually, I don't think we need to zoom in. I think you can probably see the colors on the Oxy 1 clearly enough. So let's just get kind of 4 quarter notes of C, and let's hit play and see if everything's patched correctly. Okay. That sounds about right. So this would work probably better if I had a better system for controlling the pitch detection of this. Castor and Pollux also has a web editor that you can use that allows you to turn off the jack detection thing so it won't constantly switch modes like that. The problem with that is that it changes the range that the voltage can be set at. I probably should switch. I usually have it in the mode where it doesn't do jack detection, which limits the range of the oscillator or the pitch control to just like its lowest octave. And as a result, I end up using it mostly for bass voices. So I actually turned it off recently because I wanted to experiment with the jack detection mode again. But as usual, I find it really annoying because you can kind of hear how right at the end of the quarter note, it kind of has a little wiggle to it. Like the pitch is kind of changing, I think. Unplug this for a second. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm actually confusing that for the pulse width modulation. Because as soon as I unplug the pulse width modulation, this actually sounds okay. Alright, so ignore me on that one. I think it's not relevant here. Let's plug that back in. So we've now got just quarter notes playing, and I can control how long the gate lasts with the fall time of the envelope on quadrax. And then we've got this modulation coming from the oct expander, which is modulating the pulse width of the square wave on the Pollux side of Castor and Pollux. And the modulation signal is not synced to the tempo of the Oxy 1, which I have it set at 108. Just, I don't know why, that's what it was at. We can change that if someone has a preference. I don't really. But this modulation signal is synced to the clock of oct, which is not synced to the tempo of 108. So the modulation signal will change with the speed of this knob. But you get something that is kind of out of sync, so you're not getting a timed rhythmic thing. It'll be more organic than that. And you may or may not like the sound of that. We can also try one of the other modulation outputs, like maybe one that's smoother. Like I can use... The top section is just unipolar triangle waves. So that'll give a bit of a different sound too. We can try different speeds of triangle wave. That sounds pretty good. Might want to give it a little bit of offset so that it doesn't go fully open close, so we don't get that sudden sort of static burst. Although if we're going to be doing something just noisy with distortion today, that might actually be desirable. Maybe I'll leave it like that. And let's also bring in like a sub oscillator so we can get some more deep growliness to this. Yeah. Hear that low sub octave? That sounds cool. I wonder what happens if we bring in the other one too. It thickens it up a little bit, but it doesn't really add a lot, I don't think. I think I'd rather have a slightly less rich signal so we don't get overwhelmed by this one voice. Okay, let me mute that for a sec. There's someone who was asking about sequencing with Oxy 1. I can show you a workflow that's really easy to use if you're getting started with Oxy 1 to just sort of fish for ideas. It's got this mode, let's see, if you hold shift and play, let me see if I can zoom in. I guess I have to slide this to the left a little bit so you can see it. I can't quite get it. Well, I'll just have to describe it because I can't move this too much. But there's a button with a little dice logo on it, like and kind of two arrows that cross each other, like the shuffle icon on a music player. If you hold shift and press that mode, there's a random generator. And this has a bunch of, like, every time you press the knob, it'll generate a random sequence. And you have some controls over kind of the parameters of the randomness. But this is a great way to sort of fish for melodic ideas. So let me unmute this. Let me take this off and let's make shorten the fall time in the envelope a little bit so you can hear the notes more clearly. So there, we've already got a melodic and rhythmic sequence that's just been generated. So what you can do is just press the fourth encoder, and every time you press it, it'll generate a new random sequence. That's actually pretty cool. I mean, like, you can get things that are either you just like it straight out of the gate, or sometimes it can be sort of the basis where it's like almost there, but you just kind of take the randomness that it generated and then you kind of tweak it from there, because this isn't set in stone. Like, I can turn on or off any of these steps or add additional steps. So it's just sort of like a starting place for new ideas. And then there are controls here that will allow you to sort of change how it works. So there's bias, range, random percentage, and density. I think the one I like the most is density. Like, it defaulted to 70 there, but if I turn the density down to something like 25% and click the button, then you get a sparser sequence where only 25% of the total number of steps have been filled in, roughly. And every time you press the button, you get a new one. So that's a very sparse one. I just put one note in. But I find that it depends on whether you're doing like a bass or a melodic line, but a lot of the times, and this is something I have to kind of constantly remind myself of, if I have a tendency when I'm designing sequences to want to kind of fill in all of the steps with a note. And sometimes that makes it sort of harder to latch onto a melody, because a rhythm is a really, really important sort of element of what makes a sequence memorable and sound musical. So if you're just doing like straight 16th notes with a different pitch on every step, it could sound cool depending on how you're using it, but having notes that are shorter and longer than each other, and rests or silences in between notes, goes a long way towards making something sound musical and to creating a melody that's more memorable and kind of has a chance of kind of sticking in your head, you know, like an earworm. So my suggestion when you're using this is kind of dial the density down and try to find a sweet spot where it's generating something that is a good starting place that's not too busy, and it actually kind of has some catchiness to it. It's kind of hard to get the right balance, but I think it's important to really treat this as a starting point where it's like, oh, this gets me started with an idea, but I'm not just going to use what it gives me verbatim. I mean, you could if it comes up with something great, but I think you'll often find when you're using this as an idea starting system is that you'll find yourself just endlessly tapping the random button to try to get something that's just right, and it never quite is. You can also change the range of this thing so it doesn't go so high or so low. So it was set to a full octave, but I can set it to like 7 semitones. Let me increase the density a bit for now. So now I have it set to plus 7 semitones, so it'll only go as high as a perfect fifth. We're starting on a C, it'll only ever go as high as the note G. You can see it doesn't go above that. And so if you want to sort of control the range of notes from the bass line, you can use that control. And then there's also this randomness control, the third knob, which is a percentage. And that's kind of like how many jumps there are going to be. You know, in music theory, if you have two notes that are next to each other, you can consider the change from one note to another stepwise motion. You're going by one step at a time. And then when you kind of go from a note to a note that's not adjacent to it, it's more of a jump. And generally, stepwise motion sounds better to us melodically. So kind of a healthy mix of stepwise motion with a few jumps is generally what creates a good sounding melody. And the randomness control here is kind of what determines how many jumps there are. So if I put it to like 100% random, it's going to just pick a whole bunch of random stuff that has no relation to the note that came before it. And then the lower you go on the randomness, the less likely it is to pick a note that's far away from the previous note. So sometimes you get something that just doesn't sound good because there's so many jumps. This actually sounds pretty cool to me, like especially as a bass line. So maybe we'll stick with this for a moment. You can, we're not seeing it here, but you can also randomize velocity values. So, let's see, how do I see that? I think I press mod. What's the mod? Ah, there we go. So there's the velocity. Essentially, each column is one of the 16 steps, and the sort of vertical axis is how loud the sound should be. And it's pretty uniform here, so we could try making a couple of these louder, but this doesn't do anything by itself. We have to actually map this to something in the modular. So if we go back to, let me turn this down for a second. If we go back to the CV gate page, we can set, press this button, I believe. No, this one. So pressing this button will set the second CV output to the first sequencer, and then we can change it what property of the first sequencer we're controlling. I'm setting it to velocity. So now the second CV out is going to give us a CV mapping of the velocity. So we can use that maybe for, it doesn't have to be loudness. It can also be like the fall time, maybe. That might be a fun one to map it to. Let's see if this is long enough. So I'm going to take that CV out velocity, and I'm going to send it into CVA of the quadrax. So that's a little short. Let me get a longer cable. And then I need to check in with the chat because I have been blabbing a lot. All right, CV2 out into CV input, and then I hold down CVA. Fall is already selected. Let's bring that volume back up. Okay, so I brought the base level fall time on that envelope down. And we probably want... This is a little bit busy of a sequence because it's always triggering a new note right away, and so you don't really hear the difference in that fall time change. So maybe what we'll do is generate a new sequence. I'm going to turn... The velocity is currently at 10% randomness. I'm going to turn it up higher so that the difference is more pronounced. Let's just do it 50% to really exaggerate it. And let's bring the density down to 40%. Let's give a few sequences. Try a few different ones. I think we might also need a kick drum going here to sort of anchor us in the rhythm of the sequence. Maybe we need a little bit more density. Pretty cool. Metron and Metropolis. I've never used either of those sequencers. They seem very deep though. Metron, I don't know if Metron does pitch sequencing or is it only rhythmic and gate sequencing. Metropolis definitely does both. Yeah. I feel like there's several sequencers that are very kind of super powerful but very esoteric in terms of the programming. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass since I haven't used these, but from what I've read and watched, like I feel like the NerdSec or NerdSeek is maybe one that's like very detailed but maybe not so user friendly to do. Okay, so there is an add-on to do pitch. Yeah. I don't know, Oxy 1 seems to hit the sweet spot pretty well for me. So let's look at the velocity values that are generated here. Yeah, see how that first note that comes in is all the way up on the velocity, and since we're mapping velocity to fall time on the envelope, we get a longer note there, but I can make it really short and you'll hear the difference. See that? So you can use this, even though it's called velocity in the sort of MIDI world, as a CV signal, you can map that to whatever you want. So we're kind of using the fall time of the envelope, essentially the duration of the note, as that signal to kind of give some sense of accent to the pattern, and it's not just on-offs at the same rate. Okay, I think we need at least a kick drum and some delay to make this not annoying. So let's get some more patches going. And I'm going to use C legs as a send. I'll probably try to bring in the Yester Versio too at some point, but I really like C-Legs as kind of my master bus delay and reverb. It's a very good bass line. So we're coming out of the stereo one of the stereo sends of my mixer into the C-Legs, and then back out of C-Legs into the stereo return channel in the mixer. And let's bring that in, send some of it to C-Legs. And let's kind of get this to a default bass line. I think we might want a clock here also. So another nice thing about the Oxy pipe is it also has a copy of the clock and reset output. This is something that differs between Oxy 1 original and the Mark II version, which I have here. I had the original also. So on the original Oxy 1 and Oxy pipe, this was a clock input and a reset input. So it was kind of awkward because most of the time you want Oxy 1 to be your master clock because it's the sequencer controlling everything, but you would have to use a cable out of the back of this thing to get the clock output because the clock input was on this, which isn't that useful. That would allow you to sync the Oxy to a clock source in your rack, which I would generally do with Pamela's Pro Workout, but that's not really the workflow I wanted. So I think they just kind of made the wrong choice about what controls should be on the breakout. And fortunately, they fixed that in the Mark II version. So now you have clock output and reset output. So let me send those into Pamela's Pro Workout. And then we can use Pam to get clock divisions to clock all of our other stuff in time with the Oxy sequence. So I'm just patching the clock and the run into the, or the clock and the reset output into the clock and run inputs on Pamela's Pro Workout. So now we have Pam synced to the playback status and tempo of the Oxy 1. And you can see we've got these blinking in time. And so I can take a, let's see, is this gonna be long enough? I'm gonna take the 16th note static output from the expander into the clock input of C-Legs. Let's see, make sure this is plugged in. Okay, and let's maybe get a kick drum going. Switch this to channel 2, actually. Well, that doesn't matter. No, I'll switch it to 2, because I like having my kick drum on the first channel. So I've got this on 85. And let's just get a quarter note kick, or a quarter note pulse from Pam into Crater. And we just need audio. So I should be able to use a pretty short cable for that. Output. Ooh, very different volumes. How does this sound to y'all? Does it sound a little quiet? Like, I feel like the kick drum is really quiet compared to the Castor and Pollux voice. And now I have to, as a result, I have to make it overall very quiet. But I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Let me know if this gets too loud compared to my voice. And now I feel like the tempo isn't quite matching. Yeah, that's not bad. Both kind of quiet? Okay, yeah. Turn it up a little bit more. Just trying to get a decent sounding kick drum. Yeah. Definitely need to do some mixing to get these levels to sound good. We can also add some saturation to this. We can just do that with a static voltage. There's a saturation input on Crater, which will give it some more gain. There we go. And we could also, because I have the reverb cranked up so high, that's kind of unusual for like a low voice usually. And I've filtered some of that out on Sinc, so we're not adding delay to the low end so much. Anyway, we can experiment with like more sort of patterns. We've been listening to this one for a while. Let me get a new one going. Generally like one that has, I think it's too random. Let me put it on like 25% random, or 30% maybe. Might be a little much with the sub-octave, actually. Take the sub-octave down, volume down a little bit. Oh yeah, I think that sounds better. So there's not so much competition between that sub-octave oscillator and the kick drum. Okay, we talked about distortion early on. Someone early in the stream requested that we do some distortion here. I'm trying to decide whether to use Ruina as an insert or as a send effect. I'm kind of thinking we should bring in a second melodic voice. Maybe we'll try Debel, Iteritas, Alia and send that through Ruina. So Ruina can process stereo input, but Debel is only mono output. I think that's okay, though. I don't think we care too much. Let's just try it. So I'm going to patch... well, actually, we have Sinc Legio, which is stereo out. So maybe we'll do that. Let me... let's see, where's my little tiny patch cables? So the output, let me go to the right case, zoomed in. Okay, so I'm patching the stereo output of Sinc Legio into the stereo inputs of Ruina Versio, which is our distortion processor. And then we're going to go out of Ruina. I guess before anything, we need to tune this. So let me just get a baseline C going. To the left. I'm going to patch this in, and I'm going to change the pitch on Sinc Legio to get us like a C4 maybe. I want this to be in a higher range. So it's not competing with our sort of low end coming from Castor and Pollux. All right, C4. So these digital oscillators are nice because you can't, it's easier to get them in tune, and you don't have to worry about accidentally bumping it and detuning it much. The design of the noise engineering oscillators are nice because the pitch knob, when you turn it, it just does fine tuning of the pitch, so if you accidentally turn it a little bit, it's less likely to be audible. In order to change by semitones, you have to hold the button down while you're turning, which you can't really do accidentally. So I think it's kind of a nice alternative to having like a pitch lock switch, so that you don't accidentally change the pitch. Okay, so we've got a signal going in there. Let me send. Maybe I'll send the Ruina into. Maybe I'll send it into the Yester Versio, and we'll add like a second delay. Let me unplug this for a second. Kind of get the cables out of the way. All right, so Ruina Versio out into Yester Versio in. That's stereo to stereo. And then finally, we'll have our stereo output from Yester Versio, our second delay, into the third channel of the mixer. We could always add additional delay on top of that with C-legs, but we'll have to see. And as of yet, we are not sending any data, or sorry, any signals to Sinc Legio. But let's just try bringing it in and see what we hear as the baseline sound. So Sinc Legio has 3 modes: warp, op, and fold. The fold, I'm pretty sure, is just a wave folder. And then warp, I think, is kind of like a wave shaper. I really should brush up on the manual to remember exactly what they do. But it's got 2 controls, morph and timbre, that do different things based on which mode you're in. That sounds pretty nice to me. The switch on the right is chorus. So in the bottom position, no chorus. The middle adds a little bit, like a stereo chorus. That sounds pretty nice. And then the top is like a lot of chorus. So you start to really hear the sort of pitch modulation. I think the middle mode sounds the nicest. And so I think in warp mode, the morph control changes the waveform. I think this morph control is a good target for modulation because it sounds really nice at every setting. So maybe what we'll do is we'll use another output of the oct expander. How about one of these sort of random voltages into morph? Let me actually patch this into data so you can see what the waveform is doing. I think I'm on the right mode here. Oops. Switch back to the left base. So I'm gonna patch the waveform into data. I'm not sure how well you can see. You'll have to tell me actually whether you can see the green line on the screen. But what this is doing is it's kind of creating a sort of random fluctuation of voltages that are sometimes go like negative, but are mostly above the 0 volt mark. And this is taken by kind of, I think, kind of binary, like and/or sort of min-max logic from combining triangle waves from the base module. And each one of these outputs, let me take out that note, sorry. Each one of these outputs has like kind of a different speed of change. I think that's a slow one. So the top row of outputs in this section stay generally in the positive range, and the other ones stay generally in the negative range. I think we want positive makes sense here because this is actually, I think, a unipolar input. Maybe I'll turn the morph up just a little bit. Anyway, just wanted to give a kind of a general sense of what the oct expander is doing here. You can kind of think of it as like a slightly random sort of triangle LFO with a little bit of influence over what range it kind of generally stays in. Okay, so for that to not get annoying, we need a second sequence going on that thing. So let me turn this off for a minute while we chat. And I can't really zoom in on the whole Oxy one, but let me zoom in for a second so you can see the CV settings again. So I'm going to go back into the CV mode, or the CV mappings, and I'm going to map the third CV output to the pitch of the second sequencer, and the gate output of, I guess I should, yeah, I'll do two. So the gate, or the second gate output on the Oxy pipe will be mapped to the gate output of the second sequencer. So now if we go to sequencer 2, we can kind of do the same thing that we did with the original voice, which is that I will take the CV out of the third jack, and I will patch that into the pitch input of Sinc Legio. Let's just get a random pattern. Oh, I need to set the scale also. So we're going to set the scale to minor again. Just get a random sequence to start. And we can bring this in. All right, so there's a random sequence in C minor. But we don't, it's also just droning. So there's no like, it's basically just a single legato sort of note. And we want to add a like actual gate to this, so we need to go through quadracs again. I'll turn that off a second. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to send the gate signal from the second sequencer out of the Oxy pipe. And we're going to go into the second trigger channel on quadracs. And then out of the envelope created by that into the second channel here. And actually maybe we'll use, let me get one long, well, I'm trying to decide. Yeah, we'll just do this, I guess. So I need to kind of change up the routing here so that this actually goes through the VCA before it goes into the distortion. So let's take that out. And let me see if these cables are long enough. Yeah, that should work. So we're going to come out of Sinc Legio into the second input and the third input. And let me route those under to try to keep them out of the way of your view of the Oxy one. Let's see, right output, left output. Hopefully this is still visible. Getting a little hairy. Okay, and then we need our outputs to go to the mixer. Oh, sorry, to Ruina. So these two outputs, left goes into Ruina left, and the third output right goes into Ruina right. And then the CV, the trigger for channel 2 will chain down to the third quad VCA channel. So this should, yep. There we go. I mean, that already sounds pretty cool. But currently I have Ruina and Yester both on fully dry, so we're not getting any effects. We're not getting no distortion and no delay. Let's mess with the distortion first. So I'm just going to bring it up. I forget what settings I have it in. All right, so now we're 50% dry sound, 50% distortion. Let me put all of the knobs kind of in their default positions. All right. Maybe we want to go full distorted. Oh, I don't even hear it now. Maybe we want a little bit of the dry sound. I think we need a lot of wave folding to really get much distorted sound out of this. So I don't know how well you can read the labels, but I'm kind of just messing with all the settings to try to give us some distortion. Ah, the quad VCA. Let me mute the second. I can go a little slower there because I kind of skimmed through it. So what I'm doing with the quad VCA is I'm controlling the gate length of the note, so how long it sounds before the sound goes away. The value coming from Oxy 1 is just saying kind of when each note should start. So we're just getting a trigger out of this second channel on the blue cable. I'm sending those triggers into Quadrax channel 2. So every time it receives a trigger, it's going to generate a rise fall envelope, up and then down. And the rise and the fall controls control how long it takes to go to the peak amplitude from that. And we can actually, I'm not sure if you can see this, but let me just try it. If I patch in the output into data, let's see, can you all, let me switch to the left case. Can you all see turn the time range down to maybe, I guess 200 works. Can you see the green line? So that green line is the envelope that's being created by Quadrax. The middle of the y-axis is 0 volts, and the top is, I think, maybe 5 volts. And so what happens is every time Quadrax receives a trigger on that blue cable, it starts a new sort of envelope where it goes from 0 to its maximum value, and the rise knob controls how long it takes for it to rise up to its maximum. So you can see as I increase the rise, that slant upward starts to increase, whereas before it was almost vertical. If I turn it all the way down, then it goes to its maximum voltage almost instantly. And similarly, if I change the fall time, the sort of downward slope gets more angled. And because these notes are coming in quickly, if I make the fall time long enough, the next trigger will come in before it finishes going back to 0. And so you get this kind of almost always on thing that never completely goes silent. So you can kind of tune this to taste of what sounds good to you. So anyway, we're taking that signal and we're sending that into the CV input of the quad VCA. And because I have the left and right audio channels from Sinc Legio patched into channels 2 and 3 of the quad VCA, the CV is essentially controlling when we hear the sound. So every time that green line goes up, it's essentially the equivalent of me turning the volume manually to the right to make it audible, and then it turns it back down. And of course, the rise and fall controls how long it takes for the sound to fade in and how long it takes for it to fade out after each trigger. And then because we're stereo, we have a left and a right channel of audio from Sinc Legio. I'm using 2 channels on the quad VCA, and I don't know if you can see on the panel, but there's little down arrows on the panel that are connecting these, pointing to the CV jack below it. So if you patch like a trigger or an envelope or something into the CV channel, then if there isn't anything patched to the one below it, that signal will automatically get copied. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a single envelope from the Quadrax to apply the same amplitude change to both the left and the right channels at the same time, because the normaling creates a copy into channel 3. So channel 2 is audio left, channel 3 is audio right. They're both using they both have the same change over time controlled by that envelope. That make sense? Hey, Breeze. Good to see you. Welcome. We are messing around with Castor and Pollux, Sinc Legio, Ruina Versio. We're about to do some Yester Versio. And we're exploring the Oxy 1 a little bit. No standalone VCAs. Oh yeah, I think that's probably more common than it was in the earlier days of modular, when, the modern day of modular is kind of got maybe away from the roots of like every module is kind of like a very basic component, and anything more complicated than like a VCA or an offset or something has to be created by patching multiple modules together. Nowadays we have digital modules which are essentially like desktop synthesizers in Eurorack format. And so things like these, macro oscillators from Mutable Instruments, or these platform modules from noise engineering, a lot of time they have an envelope or like a VCA or a filter or both built into them. And so you can pretty easily get away with fewer modules in your case having kind of like a full sound. But in cases like this, where you have an oscillator that does not have its own trigger jack or volume control, it's only ever going to send out a constant voltage or like a constant rate voltage so that your oscillator is droning, and it's on you to use additional modules to create the sort of shape of volume change that you want for it. So it creates some extra patching that some people find to be kind of a waste of time. They're like, I'd rather just have the envelope built in to the module and have it just be a voice. Personally, I kind of enjoy the kind of the zen of setting up the basic building blocks. And it allows you a lot of control because, these parameters that I set up over here can be modulated and can be changed. So I can change the rise time, I can change the fall time, I can do it manually with my hands, or I can send in CV to control the pattern with, say, like a synced modulation. I can also change the degree to which that envelope applies to the VCA because there's an attenuator on the CV input. So if I start to bring that down, we can hear it. Let me just bring in that one voice. If I bring the CV attenuator down, then the volume will not get as loud at the peak of the note. I might have to turn the Ruina down. So you can see it's not as loud when I attenuate the CV input, because essentially that green line on the trace is not going as high. Like the voltage only gets to 1 volt, let's say, instead of 5 volts. And as a result, the VCA doesn't open all the way. So it's just another way that you can sort of customize the change in amplitude. Ah, yeah, Javelin. Okay. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great choices for, envelope generators and VCAs. I often kind of wish that I had more VCAs. So if I start to expand my modules, I think I need more utility, because I kind of run out of VCAs sometimes. But this combo works pretty well, Quadrax and Quad VCA. I also have stages next to Quadrax, which can do additional envelopes and LFOs. And then I've got up in this €1 on the top case, I have a couple of other things I can use as a VCA. So I've got a low pass gate, which is a variant of a VCA, sort of. And then this is a dual linear VCA where you don't have control over the CV input or the levels, but you can get a couple of extra channels that I could use basically the way I'm using these. All right, let's bring in that Ruina sound. I'm gonna try to get a stronger distortion. I'm thinking that this might be kind of too clean of a sound. Let's bring in some of the timbral change on Sinc Legio. I think what the timbre does is that there's like an internal modulation oscillator that is applied to the phase of the main oscillator in the warp mode, and then it also mixes the audio output of the modulating oscillator. So you get these really gnarly kind of FM PM sort of tones. That's probably slightly better fodder for the Ruina Versio. I think this is maybe not the right waveform to get a good distortion sound from. Definitely the wave folding seems to have the most effect on this. Let's try adding some Yester Versio delay also. I'm gonna get another 16th note clock from Ham. because Yester Versio can be clocked. So let's do that. Let's get a cable going into the tap. And then let's start to bring in some delay on this sound. This has its own wavefolding too. It's kind of subtle, honestly. Like if I go all the way wet, now we're just hearing only the delay. So that fold really tears it up. Hey, no problem, Tyler. I'm glad it was useful. I appreciate you watching the stream, and thank you for the questions. Allows me to provide some really good value with what I'm doing and not just you all watching me mess around. This is an interesting thing on Yester Versio, that it's got this chorus knob. I've got it fully wet, by the way, so let me turn this off for a second. So now we're hearing only the delayed sound and not the dry sound. It's got this chorus control, which is kind of interesting for a delay, and it's bipolar, so if you, let me zoom in on the case. I've got it at the noon position right now, but if I turn it to the left, then it adds like kind of vibrato sort of pitch modulation. You get that kind of underwater sound. That's actually pretty cool. And then I think to the right, it's like a slower LFO. If you go clockwise from noon. So you can hear kind of more of a LFO sort of thing. And then at extreme settings, that's what it sounds like. I know, I kind of like the left side. The counterclockwise side. It sounds pretty cool when it's like up really high on this side. And then it has a built-in wave folder. So once you get past about noon, it's kind of tearing up the melodic part of the sound, so all you really hear is noise. So you gotta stay a little more conservative on the fold on this one, it seems. And then this tone, I think the tone is just kind of like a DJ style filter. So at noon, it has no effect. Turning to the left is like a low pass. And turning to the right should be a high pass. I think because of our low sound, we kind of need it to be more in the upper ranges to hear it clearly over the Castor and Pollux. I feel like I can bring up the melodic voices a little more now. Actually, you know what? I want to mess with the time a little bit more. So we've got it clocked, and then in clocked mode, the time control becomes like a division and multiplication control. So at noon, it's just setting the rate to exactly what the incoming clock signal is, which you can kind of see on the LEDs. And then I think if I turn counterclockwise, it multiplies, and clockwise divides. I guess we'll hear. Yeah, I think these are divisions. a little hard to tell. Let me put it in jump mode so we can hear the changes. And it also has a switch for switching between even taps, like dotted values, so it's kind of like a beat and a half, or triplets. Here's triplets. And then straight even beats. And then the pan control will control stereo width, so we should have kind of more of a ping-pong sort of sound. To me, the taps are very short, so it's kind of similar to the other Versio delays, where it is kind of partway between a delay and a reverb. Like, you don't really hear the distinct taps like you do on C-Legs, or at least at the settings I'm using. Go to the full blend. I like dotted value delays. I think the kind of offset creates a good rhythm. Okay, so turning the time all the way to the right seems to be a divider. Well, obviously we have to sidechain this, as we always do. So, I'm going to briefly take the kick drum out, send it into my multiplier, and then we're going to send one copy back into the mixer, and we're going to send one copy into the compressor, sidechain in, and then we're going to take the envelope that's generated by the compressor's sidechain circuit, so it's going to have it's essentially an envelope follower. We're going to send that as a CV signal into the mixer and set up a mapping so that that envelope ducks the volume of the bass sound. New mod, jack 1, channel 2, volume, add, amount. Maybe 70 is good. And then we can add that to the top voice too. So I don't know how well you can see it, but see there's a little line that's a horizontal line at the top of the screen that's kind of pulsing to the left, like a VU meter. That's the CV signal that's coming from the compressor, and every time the kick drum hits, the compressor detects the amplitude of the audio, generates a CV signal that sort of matches that amplitude, which I then send into the CV input of the mixer and apply that to duck the volume of the second channel, and we get that sort of pumping compression sound. Downside is I have to duplicate this for each jack. I need kind of a submixer to do this in a more easy way, which I don't have. But let's make another one of these. So volume at 70. Whoops. I think I just reset it accidentally. And to hit back. New mod, jack 1, channel 3. We're going to do 70% reduction on this too. Alright, so now we got some really strong sidechain compression. I think that's maybe too strong on the melodic voice. Maybe 25% is enough. And I wonder, we probably don't want to duck the effects, but I'm curious to hear what it sounds like. So if I use the same signal to duck the delay and reverb, mean, I don't hate that. Maybe I'll leave it at like 40. It's not too bad. I feel like I need to bring in... Now I can bring the volume of these up a little bit more, now that they're getting out of the way of the kick because of the compression. I was kind of expecting more distortion out of the Ruina, I think. Maybe this is just not the right type of signal for it. Because I've got everything cranked, and it's not that strong. Okay, and then now we've got a sound going, so we can fish for some more melodic ideas, because we've been listening to the same loop for a while. Let's go back to our second channel. Let's get a new lead line. So zoom in. Zoom. Oh yeah, those cables are unfortunately kind of covering the screen. I need to get a cable tie for this. Let's see if I can get it to just kind of stay in place. So do I have a cable tie nearby? I do, actually. Let's see if I can do this without accidentally pulling all these cables out. I'm going to make it so that you can, to the best degree possible, read the text on the screen of Oxy 1. A little bit awkward. Alright. Okay, let's make some new. So I think you should be able to see the screen okay here. So again, that pressing in that fourth encoder will generate a new random sequence. Increase a bit of randomness. It's a little too much. I feel like I need to dial it back. I'm going to take off the Ruina Versio just to make sure that the sequence sounds okay. Let's change the timbre on Sinc Legio. I'm just kind of moving steps around a little bit to kind of change it a bit from the randomness it gave us by default. Catch up with the chat. Using Zadar into molten modular motion, set to invert from side channel. On trigger, the output goes up before docking. On the trigger, the output goes up before docking. Should the inverted envelope just dip? That is a good question. I maybe would have to see it to sort of debug that. If you set it to the non-inverted mode, do you see the reverse behavior, that the signal goes down before it goes up? I don't have that module, so I can't speak to the specifics of its quirks. It could be that your signal from Zadar is actually unipolar. Or sorry, it's actually bipolar. So maybe you think it's an envelope, but it's actually an LFO that has a bit of rise. I don't know, I'm just guessing, honestly. Let's give this a kind of a snappier envelope for a different sound. Not bad. Shall we try one of the other oscillator modes on Sinc Legio? Let's go to the op mode. Oh, interesting. I mean, it's possible there's a bug in one of the two modules, like you might have a defective one, but I wouldn't want to conclude that without experimenting myself. Yeah, that Yester Versio, I wouldn't, it's funny that this is considered like, yeah, noise engineering is like basic sort of bread and butter delay, but I still find that to be quite an experimental delay sound. Not bread and butter at all. I forget what the op mode does. I think I would have to really check the manual again to remember exactly what these controls are doing. But you kind of just have to lead by ear, I guess. And then the fold mode should just be a wave folder, but I'm not sure which control is which. Not a super strong sound, honestly. I think we're getting the best results from the warp mode. And actually, the non-chorused, turning the chorus off, I think actually gives us a better signal for Ruina. Alright. Well, I'm not sure where to go from here. I guess, if there's more questions, please do ask. You know, one thing I haven't done here is, Sinc Legio has a phase modulation input, so we can send it audio rate signals to get some probably pretty gnarly harmonics. Maybe I'll try that with, I'll just like send I'll send some signal from, what would be good? Maybe Debel? It's only a mono input, but that's probably fine. Let's just try it. If I send the output of Debel into the left phase modulation input, and then we need to send Debel a trigger, because it has a built-in envelope like we were talking about. It won't make any sound on its own. So let's send it something a little different, maybe like a 1.3x, so this is kind of a triplet speed trigger. Might be a little hard to see, but you know, we're not hearing Debel. I'm just using its audio output as phase modulation input for the Sinc Legio, which is, with all these effects, it's kind of a subtle sound. Let me try turning off Ruina and Yester. See if we can hear the difference. Unplug it for a second. So there's kind of our baseline sound, and I'm going to plug in the phase modulation. And I've got the Debel sound triggering at like a triplet rate. And this time controls how long its internal envelope is. So I'm trying to make it short enough that it'll actually go back to 0 and won't just stay on all the time. And then the shape knob controls kind of, I think, how quickly it ramps in. So I think I want kind of a slower onset. Grid, I think this is a wave folder also. And then detune will detune the various additive oscillators that Debel is made from. I haven't tuned this, so I don't know what pitch it's outputting. And then I think this index control is kind of doing frequency modulation, and this is the degree to which the operators are modulating each other. It's a pretty subtle difference, honestly. I don't hear much change. Maybe we need to modulate some of these parameters. Let's take another oct output. Maybe we'll do we'll just do a triangle wave to one of these. And how about, actually I'm just curious about pitch. It's not too different. Probably time is going to be the most different. We can try the different modes. Taco, Nacho, Diablo. Diablo adds a pitch envelope like you hear on a kick drum. Putting the Debel in sort of its base range, I think, gives a bit more of a percussive attack with that PM. Let's bring the effects back in. There's also a random perform mode on Oxy 1. So before I was holding down Shift, turn this down a little bit. I was holding down Shift and pressing the random button, which takes us to that randomness generator, and that does destructive changes to your sequence. But if you press the dice button without holding down Shift, you go to random perform, and then this has like percentages of different things that you can vary non-destructively. So by default, we've got velocity, octave range, gate length, and repetition percentages. They're all 0% by default. I'm just going to start turning up the octave, and we should start to hear some of these pitches randomly go higher. It's a little hard to hear maybe with all the effects. And gate length won't matter because we don't have that mapped to anything. But repetition should, I think, will increase like retrigs. Yeah, so when I bring in the repetition amount, it starts to sort of create notes that repeat, like steps that aren't actually in the sequence. And then you have separate from that a retrig, which will sort of like start the envelope over without adding steps. So you get those kind of like fast little IDM sort of rolls. That sounds pretty cool. And then there's also a probability control. So you can turn this down, and it means that some of the triggers won't fire. And it's just kind of a random dice roll as to how likely they are to trigger. So on each iteration of the loop, you'll hear something slightly different. It's maybe a little aggressive on the retrigs. Let's put it at like 10%. So this would probably be better if I had like the velocity and the gate length actually mapped in CV, because right now they're not doing anything. Oh, why don't we just do that actually? So let's go back to the CV matrix, and we'll set the fourth CV output to be sequencer 2's velocity, and the fifth output to be what would it be? I'm not sure how you. Oh, I guess it's under the gate length. This won't really do anything. Let's just start with velocity. So again, we're using. We're going to use velocity for something other than velocity. So in the sequencer, it's called velocity, but we're going to send it to. I don't know. Maybe the index amount. This might not be audible. Let's try it pitch actually, because that'll change more audibly. This might also not be that audible because we're just using it as a phase modulation input and we're not actually hearing the oscillator. I guess we could split this and actually have... Let's listen to the sound in addition to using it to phase modulate. That might be more interesting. So let's take the output of Debel and send it into the mult. Oh, I should switch to the overhead camera. Alright, so I plugged the output of Debel into a multiple, and then I'm going to take one copy of it back into the phase modulation input of Sinc, Legio, and then we'll send a copy. Well, let's actually tune it first. See what we've got going here. Let me take the pitch out. So it's tuned to like an A sharp, it looks like. Let me turn all this modulation down so we can hear more clearly what it's doing. F sharp. I think we want it higher. Let's go up to C3. Alright, that's pretty close. And then let's send this into our mixer. Bring in the sound. So we're just playing one note. I'm not giving it a pitch sequence. Let's give this some delay from C-legs. Okay, so now we're using the audio of that to pitch modulate Sinc Legio. And we're also hearing the sound of it. Again, I'm not super familiar with Debel, so I'm kind of just experimenting a little bit. Wonder about changing the pitch on this a little bit. Maybe, let's send an LFO through a quantizer. I'm going to take an LFO from stages, and just hold down this right button. And we'll turn this into an LFO. And take the output of that into the input of our quantizer. And then let's get the output of the quantized value into the pitch of Debel. And find a pitch sequence that sounds okay. Might need to attenuate this, actually, so it doesn't go so high. Let's do that. Because that was like a full voltage range signal, and it's going to give us some very high pitches. So let's send the LFO into quadrat, and then into the quantizer, and we'll bring the level down so it doesn't go so high. Slow the LFO down. Just a little bit of change. This is a wacky patch. I really didn't know where this was going to go. I'm not sure this sounds great, but that's what happens when you do it live. It's all just experimental. just switched from the Diablo mode to the Nacho mode on Debel, which takes away the pitch envelope at the beginning of the attack. I think I might want to go an octave down on this. I don't know, what do y'all think? It's pretty nasty. Like, sound design wise, it's pretty wild. I'm not sure that I like any of the sequences. We need to bring that new voice way down, so we're using it mostly for pitch modulation and just hearing a little taste of it in the audio. And maybe a new sequence for the sort of Sinc Legio voice. I know, I'm not loving it. Let me unplug the PM for a second. And just... trig repetition down. Oh wait, I had it really low, that's why. This is too random. I want something that's more stepwise. So you can see, like, this kind of like fishing for ideas with random generation, it only gets you so far. Because we really might find something more musical by just coming up with our own sequence rather than randomizing. Modulation back in. Yeah, that's not bad. Let's add some sea legs delay to that on top of the Yester Versio delay. Maybe some noise from sea legs too. Some more reverb. Well, I'm not sure this is our most successful musical experiment on these streams, but hopefully we at least learned a bit about how to use some of these modules, what they do, and what maybe some of their capability is. But, you know, with this kind of experimentation, you never know what you're going to get. Could also vary the kick drum a little bit, so 4 on the floor is a bit much sometimes. Let's go to 16th notes, but then do the Euclidean pattern. Stop that for a second and sync it up. That's not the right control. Where's the one I was using saturation for? 3? I need to also sidechain the 4th channel. So we're going to do a new mod to channel 4. Add some more wave folding on that Yester Versio delay. Alright, maybe this is a good place to stop. I think we're kind of at a point of diminishing returns with getting this to sound good. Turn this down a bit. Alright, well that concludes the first Patch and Play stream for April. I had a good time doing this. I hope the rest of you did too. If you like what I'm doing, I would really appreciate any support you could offer on Patreon. You can find my Patreon account at patreon.com/Perceptes. There'll be a link in the description of this video. You can join it for free, or if you like, you can chip in a few dollars a month, which will get you access to high quality audio downloads of any of the music that I post to the channel, any of the musical performances. We also have a Discord community, which you can join, and we can chat about modular and other music tech. There's a few channels that you can join for free, but the paid Patreon account will give you access to additional channels for discussing all of the good stuff about music technology. Thank you very much for watching. I'll be doing a new one of these next week, and I hope you'll join me then.